A very good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm happy to welcome you to the 160th BSL webinar and the 6th episode of the 5th webinar series, Beyond Court Practice. The webinar platform, and for those who have been unable to register on Zoom, could also join us watching. These webinar series are organized by the Seminars Committee of the BSL, Chairman of the Seminars Committee, and Secretary BSL, Mr. Rajiv Surya, whose brainchild the BSL webinar series is. Convener of the Seminars Committee, Assistant Secretary BSL, Mr. Pasanda Silva, and co-conveners, Mr. Pandula Banyashi, Mr. Oshan Uberatna, Ms. Ann Devananda, and Ms. Nikini Makutigama. I further take this opportunity to thank the President of the BSL, Mr. Salih Piris, President's Council, and the other members of the Management Committee of the BSL for all the support and the continuous guidance. Today's episode is with Dr. Chanaka Talpaheva, Attorney at Law, Director, Foreign Ministry, Sri Lanka, and interviewed by Mr. Shanaka Jayadeva, Attorney at Law. Without any further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Jayadeva to take over. Sir.
Thank you very much, and thank you for that introduction. And welcome to Beyond Court Practice, another episode of this beautiful series, which we bring you every about 3 times a week in order to educate the young lawyers and people who would like to see what they could do beyond court practice as an attorney. Now, we've been speaking, as you know, to different people at different times today, and those people are from different walks of life. Today, we have another important guest, Dr. Chanaka Talpaheva. He is from a walk of life which we had not featured before. Dr. Chanaka Talpaheva is an expert in foreign service and foreign relations and international relations. He had been an ambassador of Sri Lanka as well, a career diplomat, so to say. And Dr. Chanaka Talpaheva obtained his PhD in politics and international studies from the University of Cambridge, UK. He's also was awarded the Cambridge Commonwealth Trust Scholarships, Developing World Education Fund Scholarship, Smart Scholarship, and Commonwealth Studies. He also is a recipient of the British Chevening Scholarship. He also holds an MBA, MAR, MDS, and BSc degrees from the University of Colombo, and the list of his achievements goes on. So, without taking much more time in discussing that, we'll straight away speak to Dr. Chanaka to see how he would educate us and educate all of you from his insight as to what lawyers can do beyond court practice. Dr. Chanaka, thank you very much for joining us today. How are you? How are you feeling today? How are you doing today?
Feeling fine. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here.
Yeah. Dr. Chanaka, as you know, as I told in the introduction also, most of us don't know about what we can do with our law qualification in another discipline. That is, could be a business, it could be foreign service, it could be anything. We'll go delve into that a little bit later. But first, can you tell me, how did you come into becoming a lawyer? How did law happen to you in your life?
Well, law was not something alien because I had a fascination with law, but that does not mean that I was hoping to become a lawyer per se. But like those days, there was Crown Court, a TV series. Then Henry Cecil's book of law series book starting with Brothers in Law. All those I used to read. So it was I had a fascination with law, and how I became because I did science stream and I got into the university. But during that time, IBA JVP problems were there. So I did not want to waste my time, and law college was open, and a friend of mine wanted to do the law college entrance exam. So that's how I sat for the entrance exam and I entered law college. And then I wanted to complete that because I don't believe starting something and not finishing. If you start even a course of studies or whatever, you must do your best to finish. So I completed the law qualification as well, in addition to my university degree. That's how I ended up being in the law profession. I can't hear you.
Hold on, sir. Yeah, sorry. And your qualifications go into PhDs in different disciplines in Cambridge. Tell us some experience about the international exposure you had in Cambridge.
The international exposure, it was a very unique experience because just before I was going to study at Cambridge, I was posted in New York. So suddenly I felt as if I was thrown back in time, going into the medieval time, because they say Oxford is a university in a city and they say Cambridge is a city in a university. So that's that's how they distinct between Cambridge and Oxford. So it was I would say it's a very pleasurable experience because now, as you mentioned, I did get a lot of scholarships because if you work hard, you can achieve things. And I would say it was quite a cosmopolitan environment. And I have never experienced any kind of discrimination, whether academic or otherwise, at Cambridge. And even I may say I will go into my sporting arena and say I did row for the college, not the university, college first aid. And the tussle was between the chaplain of the college, who was from Oxford, and myself. So that's why I said there was no discrimination. And the captain and the coach decided the most deserving should get. So that way it was a very pleasurable experience. And even the education-wise, I enjoyed it to the utmost. That I would say, and then you get a lot of exposure because you can take part in any of the lectures. You can go to any faculty, any department and sit at any lecture you want. And also, I mean, the facilities-wise also is quite good. So that way it was a very good experience. You get an all-round experience. There are even social etiquette-wise, where you have to take part in the high table dinners and things like that. And it's steeped in tradition, and they maintain those traditions as well.
Okay, and so you came into foreign service after that, foreign service working, right? And you are a career diplomat, and you had a long stint in the foreign service. Now, for you not to come into practice as a lawyer, or did you have a stint in some chamber or some law firm and came into this, or how did that all work about?
Well, it's like this. Now I did because after I completed my law studies only, I again resumed my university because universities are closing and opening at that time. Anyway, it was basically fits and start functioning universities. So after I completed my university, I practiced in the chambers of Mr. Ajanta Kure, who was a former secretary of the Bar Association as well. Then I actually joined the private sector after that. I was the manager legal for the CIC group. When I was a CIC group, I sat for the law entrance exam. That is also, I must say, because my father was keen that I become a government servant. He himself was a government servant. And during this time, it was Minister Lakshman Kadiragam who was a foreign minister. So he gave a sort of a new vision to the whole foreign service. And during that era, only I sat and was recruited to the foreign service of Sri Lanka.
When you went to the foreign service, was there any, is it a liking that you wanted to break away from the traditional law practice, or you were just experiencing that?
In a sense, I would say, with all due respect to the practicing practitioners who are practicing actively in courts, I think I wanted to break away from the traditional practice. The reason was I used to do a lot of sports. So because of that, I had to have I had a regimented life. So, when you practice, cases go down, chamber work can be on the, I must say, Mr. Kure gave me a lot of leeway that in that aspect. So I want to get away from the day-to-day practicing as a lawyer. That's why I entered into the corporate sector, which was okay. Then I thought during that era, like I said previously, Mr. Lakshman Kadiragama's time, so I thought that's a good opportunity to join and serve the country, as well as, I thought it's a good, I will get a lot of good exposure and experience as well.
Now, let's go into your foreign service. Walk us through your career there. How was it? My first question, which I actually just threw to everybody in this series, is that was the fact that you were a lawyer, was it helpful as a launching pad, or to be recognized more in the foreign service, the foreign ministry, and among your other colleagues? Or did you have to learn everything from scratch there in order to make it great there? And how was your walk of life in that institution?
Well, before I come into your question, I like to also make a comment. Now, law is something that gives you a lot of analytical skills, and it gives you a lot of background knowledge. So because, if you really go through all the studies and the courses, so because of that, you're starting at a bit of a higher level because you're trained to think. And then there is also, if you say by chance, if somebody knows that you're a lawyer, then there's a bit of a apprehension, my God, you know everything and you're a lawyer. But even at my interview, this that time secretary, Mr. Lionel Fano, did question about the Teswalami lawyer from me. You know, when they, so I mean, so that also helped. So your training as a lawyer definitely helps. That helped me because you're by that time you're a professional. So you know why. Then you can take up any challenge and study any course of studies or even any job you can take over. It's not like coming raw from the university. It's different. So that did help. So once I joined also because of that training, and of course I had gone to the university training as well. So it was, I wouldn't say it's not rocket science. So it was, I mean, I didn't find any difficulty in picking up the work.
So walk us through the career path in the foreign service.
Yeah, now.
What did you start?
You start as an assistant director. So like that, there is a different grade. So now coming to the, how you join the foreign service, if I may mention, or you want me to ask it later? Or you're going to ask it later from me?
No. You go ahead the way we like.
Because a lot of people don't know how to join the foreign service. It's like the civil service or what you call the administrative service. There's an open competitive exam, which is gazetted. So you have to sit for the exam. Anybody in any language, English, Tamil or Sinhalese can sit for the exam. Now, for the lawyers, this is important. To sit for the foreign service exam, the minimum criteria is a degree. So being an attorney at law, the professional qualification does not suffice. So you have to have a degree, any degree for that matter. So you have to sit for the exam. So once you sit for the exam only, there's a selection process. Then you are selected to the foreign service as an assistant director on a probationary basis. Then there are certain other exams like in the government service where the first efficiency bar, the second efficiency bar in the foreign language, those exams are there. Then, so you have to get the increment and the career progression is there.
Right. So, how would you term the obstacles you would have faced there in working, obstacles you faced, and obstacles, problems you had, and what are how can you give some examples of that and see how you build up your way in the foreign service?
Yeah, once you join any profession for that matter, you have to learn. So basically, you're thrown into deep end. There's nobody to spoon feed you. Maybe there's somebody to guide you there. You can have some mentors type of thing, but then you have to learn. So the obstacle, any obstacle you can overcome if you have the commitment. And as a lecturer, that is something I see lacking in a lot of students, commitment to the course of study. If you have pride in your work, if you give attention to detail, and if you are committed, definitely you can overcome any obstacle, because if you don't know something, then there's a way to learn from either from your seniors or you refer up and learn. So how I work-wise, that's why I said no obstacle was insurmountable. You could overcome, you could learn, but then that entails a lot of hard work and commitment. So without that, I don't believe there's a shortcut to the top or to achieve, high standards. So as I said, you have to have pride in your work, you have to have attention to detail, and you have to have commitment, and you have to have time management, because at the end of the day, at this stage, maybe you get married, you have to balance your family life. So all those things are there. Then it also can be quite a high pressure job, depending on the area of work you do. For example, if somebody is handling the Ukraine country, which I did those days, Russia and Ukraine, now those people will have a lot of work to monitor the situation, report and see how it affects Sri Lanka. So it can be a high pressure job also. But like I said, if you have those ingredients in you, ingrained, it won't be a problem.
Now, you went as an ambassador at one point.
Yes.
When you go as ambassador, now two questions actually I have here. Now, a lot of people think that, not a lot of people think that it happens that career diplomats also becomes ambassadors, and then there are outside people who have been brought as ambassadors. What is your view on this? Is this correct to bring? I mean, worldwide they do this, not only Sri Lanka. Now, if you look at the ambassadors who have come from other countries, they are not necessarily US. Everybody's not from the State Department, but they have background. Is this a correct thing, or should it only be people who have worked their way up in the foreign ministry who should be ambassadors?
Well, I'll give you a bit of an elaborate answer because I don't want to go into nitty-gritty details.
Yeah,
I will want
no
to place on record
Yeah.
whatever I'm stating is my personal opinion.
Correct.
Right? And it does not reflect the opinion of the government or any other institution which I am attached to.
Yeah.
Now, so I will give elaborate answer. People can pick up this because I know why you're asking this question. I mean, there are a lot of issues. So I can give some examples where what other people have mentioned. So it cannot be attributed to me then. So now if you look at the foreign, now if you take the international relations as a field, is over a century old. It started in the University of Basel in 1990. So it's over as a specialized field. So it's 100 years plus here. Now, you have to understand Sri Lanka, obviously is a small country, not a military power, not an economic power. So then what is our first line of defense? Diplomats. Now, keeping that in mind only, soon after independence, 1949, the first batch of the foreign service was recruited. They created the foreign service as a separate service like the civil service, and the first batch was recruited, the batch of 6. So that shows the importance of a career service to man our diplomatic missions overseas. Now, at the initial stages, if you look at all our ambassadors soon after independence were non-career ambassadors. The reason there was no career ambassadors available at that time, because we had just, the service was at its infancy. And those people by 1960s and 70s only, those people rose to the rank of ambassadors. But also if you look at the names of the people like Sir Claude Correa or RSS Gunawardhan or Sir D.B. Jayathilaka, they have achieved distinction in their chosen fields, and they were suitable to be ambassadors. Now, coming to your question about whether career versus outside appointments. The thing is, I'm not saying that career people will make the best ambassadors. If you take someone like Mr. Shirley Amarasinghe, who's considered to be a very distinguished ambassador who did proud to Sri Lanka, like chairing the Law of the Sea Conference, he was from the SLAs, Administrative Service. He was not from the Foreign Service. So, but saying that again, why have a separate service if you don't need a specialized people to man or represent your country? So the question, that is something we should ask and answer. Now, taking from you, when you said, Chanakya, that other countries also have from outside. One day I was having lunch with now he's gone, the Indian High Commissioner in Sri Lanka, not the current incumbent High Commissioner, previous High Commissioner. When he realized, actually I was attached to the UN at that time. Then when he realized that I was in the foreign service, he asked about the composition of ambassadors. I mean, maybe he knew or he just wanted to verify about the composition percentage wise. So I gave an answer. And then when I asked the same question in return from the ambassador, he counted and said there are about 5 people from outside their service. So how good the Indian Foreign Service and how good the Sri Lankan Foreign Service, I mean, you all can judge. I'm not giving any this thing. So in the Indian Foreign Service at that time, there were about only 5 people from outside, and they have more missions than Sri Lanka. So, and then another aspect is you join the service. To become an ambassador, 15, 20 years, to come to that level, you have to have a service of 15 to 20 years. So on the way, even an average person accumulates a lot of experience and exposure while going up. So can the same be expected from somebody who, I would use the word, parachuted from outside? So answer, I mean, you all can decide the answer. And now, actually, I'll be very open. If you look at the whole service, because I do lectures on foreign policy and all, it is from 1977 onward that we have actually seen a lot of outsiders coming. And to be frank, Chanakya, I can say some people whom I have worked with, they have been told to come on a holiday type of thing. So they think if anybody can go and work outside, then it's like a holiday for their kith and kin and all sorts of issues. So that's why I said, so people forget there's a specialized, it should be a specialized service. So when there's an issue, half the time or most of the time, foreign service is attacked. or they are not doing anything. So you have to look at the composition and see, because a lot of of course, any president of the country, whoever the president, has the prerogative of appointing the ambassadors, because that's his or her representative. So whether they are suitable or not is a question mark. So ultimately, the foreign service in generally is castigated when something goes wrong. So they have to understand where the problem is. So I hope I have given some kind of an answer to your question. And from a career point of view, sometimes it can be quite disheartening, because now I always say, when my colleagues, when they find it rather disheartening, I say the stakes are very high in the foreign service. Now, if you take the administrative service, it might be something like trying to come to Colombo, or where they put the kids to school or something like that, you get a transfer. Those are the stakes. In the foreign service, it's going on overseas posting. So stakes are high, and a lot of people are aiming that. The pot is small, the interested parties are quite a large number. So that's how it works. So in my case, personally, I take it as it comes.
Right.
That's how I look at it.
I think that's very diplomatically put. It's nice. That's all you could say. Okay, now one of the other questions that now, as you know, this series is meant for young lawyers who want to see how they can make it great in other careers than court, and also for maybe law students. Now, one of the things that regularly these young lawyers would want to know is, when they are going on a non-legal job of any industry or any service, whether they would need any additional qualification, whether there would be advantages or disadvantages to them to have the trade, if I may say, that the qualifications in that trade per se, right? Because I got two different schools of thoughts from the previous speakers I spoke. One speaker said that she was in financing and banking, but no, she was only an attorney, of course, foreign qualified like you, and being an attorney alone, by hands-on experience and hands-on learning without doing additional qualification, she rose to the level of the head of the institution on a finance institution, which is a bank, right? And then there was another school of thought from some speakers which said that no, it would be your advantages to, while you work on that trade per se, to go forward, go up in the ladder, to accumulate your qualifications. For example, there's this inventor we spoke to, he said he did MBA. He's a lawyer, but he knew his entire business without doing the MBA. But when he did his MBA, it helped him to fast track his business dealings and everything. But now, bringing this to the foreign service, what would you say to a lawyer who wants to join the Sri Lanka Foreign Service, but who is not qualified in anything, any international relations or anything like that? Would it be necessary, or can that person be equally a success by hands-on learning while on the job?
Well, Chanaka, when it comes to foreign service, I think they have made matters easy for you, for the prospective. The reason is there are requirements. I said the efficiency by exams, and then there's a master's requirement, the foreign language training. So there are requirements which you have to fulfill on the way. So whether you like it or not, you get some kind of added qualification, added knowledge for the foreign service. But to enter the foreign service, the qualification is any degree, but then there are papers like World Affairs 1, World Affairs 2. There are two papers which specializes in world affairs. So you have to have some kind of knowledge to get through the foreign service exam. So if I actually have the subjects, I got the latest one. So it's
that will be very helpful. Yeah.
Basically, now I told the entry requirement is any degree recognized by the UGC, either in Sri Lanka or a foreign university degree, but has to be recognized by the UGC. And the entrance exam will have two parts. Now, part one have IQ test and comprehension. And those who get over 100 marks and over 40 marks per subject and aggregate of 100 marks, they are the only one who will be eligible for the second part of the exam. Second part is have a general paper and World Affairs 1, World Affairs 2, prescient language proficiency, whatever the language you do. So that means you have to have a knowledge of what is happening in the world. That means in relation to international relations. So once you are qualified from you're selected or you pass those exams, and you can go for the interview. That's how you're selected. So you have to have a knowledge. Now, one part of your question was, as you go along, how do you manage, or whether it's going to help? Now, there are certain, like I'm repeating myself, efficiency bar exam, which covers this. Even in the efficiency bar, there's law paper also, constitutional law, if I'm not mistaken. There are 2 law papers as well. So being a lawyer helps you to do that or try to get an exemption. And also, ultimately, you have to do a master's in a relevant field, like international relations, or even the MBA is recognized. So you have to. So that's why I said the service has made it easy. It's a requirement. So you have to fulfill. So you have to, whether you like it or not, or even on paper, you have to have the qualification. Now, coming to the other part of your comments and the question, whether it helps. Now, what I would tell the young lawyers, I mean, it's a very difficult time, especially what are the practice, the period you're looking at, like 3-4 years in practice, that type of period are we looking at the young lawyers?
Yeah, actually, that's very good. You counter that question for me. Nowadays, not like when we were studying, even law students, there are students who have come to do a research with me. They are wondering, when I asked why they want hands-on experience, they said, sir, we want to know where we would fit in, whether it's a law job per se, or whether I'll take this qualification and go and get myself enrolled in it's something else. So this is very, very good thinking, advanced thinking. I think it's because the people it's part of I don't know. Whatever reason, they are more advanced than our time. And then also that is for the students. I have seen that a lot in students. So they are also from a target audience. And also, of course, like you correctly said, in the lawyers who are in the first 5 years of their experience, generally you are groping in the dark, no? Right?
Yes, that's why I was coming.
So
I was coming to that. During my period at law college, there were a lot of senior looking people who are my batchmates. When they go to the practice, they are better off, they think very senior lawyers. But now, especially these days, these students, it's a very transitional period in their life and a very uncertain period. You don't know exactly where your career goes, and I also underwent the same thing because you didn't know what you wanted to do. So what I would say is that you should not confine yourself in your mind. Don't have that mind block. Okay, I'm a lawyer, so I have to be a lawyer. That mind block you should not have. Now, this is a highly connected, multifaceted, multitasking world. So you have to always have it in your mind that you can do something beyond being a lawyer or beyond the legal field. The first thing is to get out of that mind barrier. Okay, you're trained as a lawyer. Yeah, that's very good. Being trained as a lawyer is very good. It will help you. It's a good springboard for any profession. But now what these students or the targeted audience or the young lawyers should do is not to get stuck in being in that mindset. And coming from that, I would say that if you say join the firm, now I did my MBA and marketing. Why did I do that? Now it's not accumulating qualifications, what I have done. Every time I had a reason to do what I did. Now only I'm thinking I like to study what I love to study. All this time there was a reason. Now I did my MBA and marketing when I was in the private sector, but I was a manager legal of the CIC group. But I thought I'll get a better understanding if I have a business background, at least theoretical, because I can actually see the practically what's happening. So that's how I added the qualification, because qualification not as an ornament, but to gather the knowledge. That was the reason. So, but if I was stuck in the private sector, for my career progression was at some crucial juncture, those qualifications also matters. Now, if I'm just a lawyer, but there's another lawyer or a person with human resource management masters or something like that, as a human resource manager, that person might have the edge over me. So the qualifications matter on paper, but you can learn the things also. All your work you can learn, but at the same time, the theoretical knowledge, the concepts, the theorems, all those things you can't learn in the workplace. You have to have a structured course of study to learn those. So I would say, if you want to venture out to other professions, and if you are comfortable with a particular profession or a particular type of work, might as well get some qualifications, not as just a certificate, but to gather the knowledge and get the qualification certificate at the same time. That will give you the edge. So that would be my advice.
Here's I would say as a host, we always have this thing of putting a googly, if I may say,
No
right?
problem. Any
No,
question?
no problem. Political influence. Now, one of the things that people, students, law students also think that, okay, foreign service, somebody who's watching can think like this, foreign, because they have asked from me also, foreign service is another government department, right? It depends on whom I know in which side of the aisle that I will get through. So all this listening and all these things are useless. Is this really true, or can your merits alone make it happen?
You mean getting into the foreign service
Getting into
or
the foreign
working in the
service,
foreign service?
getting in and going beyond that, working both.
Well, getting into the foreign service, I can assure you, of course, that was a certain era. Like I hold Minister Kadirgami the highest esteem because he wanted a professional foreign service and he fought to have that percentage. He had a percentage of 70% career ambassadors and 30% outsiders. He used to say at least 70% there should be. Now, at that time, definitely there was no, I didn't talk to anybody. And I still remember when I came home after the interview, I told my father, if it's free and fair, I am in. And I was in. So it was free and fair. In fact, one day I thanked Minister Kadiragama for having a free and fair system. And the exam is conducted by the Department of Examinations. So that is, I think, one of the very few institutions who is, which is not still tainted. Department of Examination still has that recognition. You know, if you conduct exam, it's generally free and fair. Now, I like to mention something which can be a bit controversial, but there have been instances when a lot of, for the interview, when there's a lot of high marks have been given. Now, what I'm going to say is not going to go down well with some of my colleagues. Out of 150, 135 marks. And there's no breakdown how the marks are given. So if you have a breakdown, then there are question marks. How did that person get such a lot of marks? But that has also been regularized in this gazetted, latest gazette. The interview marks is like, it's called interview for eligibility assessment. And it's categorized, and how the marks are given is also gazetted. How the marks are given is also gazetted in the latest gazette, that is dated 21/4/9. So that way, I would say, coming into the foreign service generally is free and fair because it's quite regularized. The other part of the question, once you're in the service, now, how I would say is your career progression, it's difficult to block. Career progression means your promotions and all, because if you fulfill your efficiency by exams, your language requirements, all those things, you step by step, you go up. So the point, the contentious point, I would say, everybody, when you go on foreign postings, then of course, favoritism can play, and I would say more often than not, it happens. So it's on the posting, but your level, your seniority, all those things, it goes regularly. So two aspects to your question, you should look at two aspects. Career in the foreign service, there is no issue. But if you are looking at a career like going on posting, serving in overseas posts, then there can be an issue where you can be disheartened. So you have to have an open mind and take things as it comes.
Can I see whether I can be a little fair by that question? Now, every government which comes with some political party, so they would put only somebody whom they can trust from their party to represent the country at, like you said, in postings. Isn't this is not, correct me if I'm wrong, in my view, this is common to any country in the world, just US or UK or whatever. Having said that, isn't that fair to be picked on your party that is ruling and which you're aligned to with regard to posting, or is it not fair? Is there any country which doesn't?
You mean the career person speaks for the party?
No. When you said when you're picked for foreign service postings, pick for postings, it will be the party who is in power who will be picking them, who are trustworthy for them. Now, take Donald Trump is one guy who articulated this. He said you have to be loyal to me, which he meant was loyal to the Republican Party, and you don't generally say things like that. But does it happen like that in every country? I see it might be happening, and if it does, or is it not? Does it happen or does it not happen in every country like that?
Well, I gave the
Based on
example of
political.
India. I think your question, you're asking people in the service when they are picked to be sent overseas.
Yes, that's it. That
But
part. The other
actually,
part I understood.
it's, I mean, as professionals,
Yeah.
as a service, whatever that government in power, we should implement the policies of the government.
Yeah.
I mean, the role of a diplomat is to protect and promote the national interest. So depending on the party in power, the national interest may differ. I mean, I have been asked when I was in London, I say one thing, go and lobby them for one thing, and like a few months later, I had to go lobby the opposite. So one day, House of Lords, at one of the Sri Lanka parliamentary House of Lords, there's a gathering, the group. They asked, what is this High Commissioner? You're telling something a few months ago, you're telling totally opposite. So I said, I carry the brief of the government. Whatever the government says, I have to say that. So if you have to have that, you can't do party politics by being a government, sir. I mean, that is not fair. Whatever the government in power, you have to serve the government. That's why we are government servants. So that way, if the service people also act professionally, I think the government, whatever the government in power, should not have any fear of their questioning their loyalty. We are loyal to the country. For me, of course, I am loyal to my country, not to individuals. It's I'm loyal to my country. That's how it should be. But what happens in, because the stakes are very high, you want to go on postings and, there are so many things. Sometimes maybe human nature is such, perhaps, sometimes they also try to pitch here and there to get their things done. And sometimes both those who are in power also may like to have people who are sort of amenable to their thinking to be sent. But now another aspect I like to add to your question is about now sending people from outside. Perfectly all right if people from outside are sent as long as they're competent. The question is when it comes to the competency. If they're not competent, just to out of taxpayers' money, that should not be done. But if they're competent, there's no issue. Now you mentioned UK and USA. I think all the high commissioners in recent times, as I recall, I can't recall a political appointed high commissioner from the United Kingdom. All coming from their service. And even the USA, many who have been serving in the State Department now, even the recent person who also served this. So they are also career people.
Okay. Now, one of the other things is taking this apart from foreign service as general advice to the young lawyers who want to be beyond doing their building their career beyond court practice. What do you expect? What do you think a person should have as skill and qualities to come up in life, other than court practice? Now, we know in court practice you need to be a good advocate, you need to have good memory, you need to you do your research and long hours, all that. You know what makes a counselor, right? Or what makes a lead lawyer or boardroom lawyer. Now, beyond court practice, when you're doing, but you're still a lawyer, what would be the other skills and qualities you should have to make it great?
Well, you first and foremost, you must get out of the label of being a lawyer. You have to start thinking, I can be anybody I want. Because you should not get confined to that, frame of being a lawyer. So one thing is, whatever the field, you have to gather the subject knowledge. That is very important. You have to be hands-on with the subject. For example, if it's marketing, you have to know what marketing is. If it's human resource management, yes. If it's general administration, yes. If you're running a business, yes. So you have to get the subject knowledge. That's the most important thing. And now, of course, for that, I explained earlier, you had to do a course of study and get that qualification as well. So the young lawyers should realize that, of course, you have to be you have to articulate yourself well. So being a lawyer, that is something that you have the advantage. Analytical skills, putting long hours, summarizing things and articulating things in public. Maybe in courts, they have the practice, they have the experience. So you have an advantage. What you should do is to build on that advantage and go wherever you want to the next level. I would say subject knowledge is the most important thing. That because when you are entering another field, the young lawyer should understand there are people who have eyed that field before in whatever the workplace. For example, if you are the human resource person, a lawyer also getting involved in human resource, there may be people who have done the basic degree in human resource management and done a master's and who are aiming to go in that career path. So there's a lot of competition. And Chanakya, as you know, even the profession, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, is a bit crowded now. so many lawyers.
It is
Like
tough.
those days, it's like from
Yes.
the faculty of law and, then the Open University and maybe from Columbia and over. Those are the things. Now there are a lot of private places where you can come to the profession, parallel entry, and do the law exams. And, there are a lot of lawyers. So everywhere in the country, in the workplace, the competition is very high. So for that, you have the competitive advantage. How you get the advantage? By specialization, having the knowledge. So that is what our young lawyers should do. And having extra knowledge in other areas will also help. So that means a lot of hard work. Hard work means you have to enjoy. You have to put in long hours and equip yourself.
We would know if anybody who's watching leaving law or otherwise want to do a foreign service, anybody who's watching, who wanted to join foreign service, one of the things they would have is in their mind is someday they will be able to go abroad and serve for the country, and that exposure and that experience and all that. But be that as it may, does it actually now in a business, we know when you go up on the ladder, you get your payments are high, your remuneration is high, your extra benefits, fringe benefits, everything is there. Does it, in short, put it in short, does it pay to be a career diplomat? What I mean is, does it pay all your bills and your kids' educations and all those things as you go on? Because there is no other income you can't practice while you're there, right? Does it pay?
Now you're asking about the pay. It's like this, simply this. In Sri Lanka, you are paid quite a low amount. I don't know what is other words. Basically, my monthly salary in the service, I'm sure some lawyers will get a very fraction of it with the 1 court appearance. Some leading lawyers with 1 court appearance, they'll get like, it will be a fraction of what they get for a day. But now saying that, it's when you go overseas, there are certain privileges because your accommodation is given. Then these health benefits are there, insurance, or they pay for the medical. And then for the children's education, of course, they give up to a percentage, some 25% you have to, those things change from time to time, you have to pay. When you are here also, for international school, the list of schools which they pay. So when you go on a posting, you are generally okay. So it's a choice you make. Now, if I was in the private sector, now some people ask, I'm in private sector also, I would have been, even if I go on a posting, I will be earning the same amount of money by now. Because private sector also, there are a lot of fringe benefits that is attached. So, but serving in Sri Lanka, of course, it's quite a low amount. Now, another thing I like to tell young lawyers, if I may add another thing, the question you have not asked. Now, they can, why only think of the foreign service? United Nations is there. There are so many agencies, which I have gone and said, I applied and went, not nominated by the government. I applied on my own and went. I know a few Sri Lankans who had a high level. There's one person I know quite well. He had done law, but not in Sri Lanka, overseas. Now he's holding a very high position in the UN system. Then there are certain other agencies, like not, they may be like NGOs, but very recognized NGOs where you can go and serve. Even in the UN for lawyers, there were a lot of vacancies. I know when I was there, they were looking for some lawyers who had some exposure in governance side for assignment. So it's not only the foreign service that has job opportunities or career opportunities. Even other places also has, with the regional organization, multilateral organizations, NGOs or recognized ones, not mushrooming ones. So you have to think beyond the foreign service also. But there are a lot of opportunities, but at the same time, the competition is high. If it's something like UN, it's global competition. So that's where you have to be well equipped.
When it comes to following people, one of the questions that have been in your research, there in the research also recently, not recently, about a couple of years ago, inter-country research, where one of the things, insurgencies and youth frustration and all these things happen because is that there is no people don't have role models to follow. That was one of the points that young people brought up. Now my question is, taking this to the foreign service in the broader sense, not as Sri Lanka foreign service per se, UN or whatever. If somebody wants to look at somebody who has done well, you mentioned Lakshmi Kadirgama, who we all know is a good role model. Like that, could you suggest who could we look up to other than Kadirgama? Who could we look up as role models?
Well, I would say as a foreign minister, Minister Kadregam was a first world foreign minister in the third world country. Sometimes I wonder whether we deserved him. But many others, of course, I'll reserve my comments.
Yeah.
I mean, you all can decide for yourself. But now that's also something that very interesting. The way I look at it is a bit different. There are two ways of learning from people. I mean, it can be a leader, it can be a minister, it can be your boss, whatever. One thing, what are the good qualities that you can get from or learn from that person? Other, and the more importantly, what are the bad qualities that you should not have? So that is something that we criticize people. I mean, this fellow is not good, then, he's not good. So we have to understand why is he not good. If he doesn't know how to talk, then we should know we should not talk like him. So there's two ways of learning from one person. No, you have to look at the person and say. So that's why I have always been like that. When I look at a person, it's very difficult to find role models. And also, there are role models, but we also have a tendency. I think it's our mindset. We look at role models from the political arena. We look at leaders. They say, when you say leaders, oh, it's politicians who are the leaders, the ministers. No, in the academic side, there are good role models. In the corporate sector, there are good role models. And one good role model, I'll tell. I have not met that gentleman personally, never, but I've read a lot about like B.S. Jayasundar from Hades Group, a visionary who has been an excellent manager and a good human being. Now, these are role models, but we will always say that we look at politicians. So there are role models in the private sector, in the academia. Even you can look at some people's very good qualities in the literature field, like that. There are many role models that also we confine ourselves looking at role models. So when it comes to foreign relations and foreign affairs, Minister Kadregam, for me, I don't think if at a role model that will be him. Beyond that, of course, I don't think I will venture out to find any role models.
Sorry, you're a lecturer and you lecture in so many different subjects.
It's like a visiting lecturer, part-time visiting lecturer.
What would you share in short from your lecture notes to our audience who are young lawyers whom we are promoting to be in foreign service or UN or whatever? What would you share in short? I know you can't do a lecture in the next several minutes, but if I were to ask you, what would you share in point form? What are the key takeaways you would share from your lecture notes, which you give in your from other than what you so far said?
I must say that my lectures are not only on international relations or diplomacy. I do lecture on various other subjects as well. But now for the young lawyers, what I would say, which I also told previously, is equip yourself. Now, if it's a foreign service exam you are sitting, first and foremost, what you should do is get the gazette and go through it very carefully. Then only you can prepare for the exam. For example, now I have the gazette with me because now see, I brought the gazette because of this interview. I found the gazette and I brought it because I didn't want to rattle it off. Now, even the question paper, they give the composition of the question paper. That, for example, if you say World Affairs 1, it says this paper will consist question of current global political developments. Like that, it gives the description. World Affairs 2, that paper says this will consist of questions on recent trends of economic development. So World Affairs 1 is political development. World Affairs 2 paper is on economic development. Unless you study this gazette, you will think World Affairs or just about the global developments. It doesn't say on the paper, the name of the paper, it doesn't say on economics or political. You have to go through the gazette to see that. So first thing is preparing. For the exam, if you say, go through the gazette, the marking scheme, and you prepare. At the end of the day, this is an exam-oriented country. I mean, okay, we do research too, but it's always people are studying from, if you take the grade 5 scholarship from grade 1, they are sent for tuition classes now. So they are trained, spoon-fed and exam-oriented. So, but even for that, this exam, you have to be exam-oriented. That's why I said, get the gazette, go through it. Then you know what the question papers are, the subject matters. Then you know, when you come to the interview stage, if you are lucky, and I hope most of you all will be lucky, or all of you all will be lucky, then you know how the marks are given. So whatever the interview marks you can get at the interview, that also you can start collecting. If I may use the term collecting. End of the day, you have to get the marks, you have to be on the top bracket to get in. So that's this. Even if it's UN exams, there are some exams now. When you have to sit for an exam sometimes to get into the UN, because depending on the vacancy. Depending on the job description, they give a TOR. terms of reference and the job description. Depending on that, you can figure out what type of questions or what type of a paper or even how the interview will be structured. So you have to prepare. Main thing for young lawyers is to prepare. Whatever the field, you prepare. For that, you have to do a lot of research. Now it's very easy because the internet is there. Information, actually, it's very easy to gather information. So you have to be thorough. Sometimes when you go for the interview, see, when I prepared so much, they ask only 1 or 2 questions. It was very easy and you will be successful. But you have to be absolutely thorough. Then you will not have any regrets.
Okay. Now, you are also author of many journals, and you have authored, I think, articles and stuff in intrastate conflicts, and so many guides you have written to different countries. So the current conflict, this is a little bit taking away from the what we were discussing, the current conflict of Ukraine and Russia. Would you have any comments to make on that?
Sorry, what was the question? Current conflict?
Current conflict on Ukraine and Russian conflict. Would you have any comments to make on that?
Well, I don't think I should make a comment because of my but I would make this. This is what happened was my boss asked me about this. I can repeat. My boss, my additional secretary, asked me some time ago about what do you think? Will Russia attack Ukraine? My answer was, if you know Putin, I mean, you have to understand from the history, his background, how Yeltsin ran the country to the ground, all those. I said, if you understand Putin, if things don't change to what, I mean, he has a perception, he thinks there's an issue, there's a threat, he will attack. Then, of course, later, my boss told higher ups that have been brought in, certain higher ups that, oh no, that will never happen. So, I mean, these things happen. So you have to understand the context also. Not only this, you have to understand, but if you are looking at the conflict of Ukraine and Russia, you have to go to the history and see how the things have evolved, how all these interactions between countries, and also the individuals involved. So it's a tricky situation. As things evolve, as you can see, it's a tricky situation. So I can't venture out too much to comment. We have a good diplomatic relations with both these countries, and I think Sri Lanka should stay neutral without making any comment, and that's what we have been following. I think we don't comment or we don't take sides. The official position of the government.
Coming back to you, are also a sports person. Tell us something about how sport helped you in your career.
I would say very much.
Very much. How does
I would say sports help you very much, and that's one thing Minister Kadiragama told me. He said he wanted to have well-rounded persons in the foreign service, people like you. One day when he met me, because he also had done a lot of sports, and we were discussing. Because actually when I went for the SAF games, he said bring a medal and come, and which I did. So that's when I subsequently, when I met him, he told me that he wanted well-rounded people, because sports help. Because if you do sports at a very competitive level, it makes you believe in yourself. You have to go beyond what is possible. I mean, you think you're possible up to a certain limit to push yourself, you have to push yourself beyond the limit. So that also you can, to your workplace or whether your studies, you can apply. And sports also disciplines you, because you have to have time management, you have to prioritize things, because at the end of the day, we even don't have 24 hours in this for a day. We actually have only less than 24 hours for a day. So because of that, it helps you to discipline yourself. And another thing what I have learned is, or I have experienced, say you do a practice session in the morning, whole day you do feel tired, but you are very much alert and there's a lot of energy in you. So just after my training for the SAF games, when I used to train and go to work and train in the evening again. So when I'm climbing the stairs, you see, it's as if I'm bouncing off the stairs. You know, after your training, you're pumped up and come, you can really work hard also. So that helps. I'm telling you, I'll tell all the young lawyers, do something, do some active sports, whatever. It doesn't have to be competitive. You have to exercise like you exercise your brain, you have to exercise your body also. It should go hand in hand, it should complement each other. So I would say it's a good thing. Even in overseas also, when I did studies, I did sports.
Right.
So that helps.
Yeah.
And may I add another little thing?
Yes,
Sometimes parents don't agree with it. So when my parents never agreed that when I do sports, so I said, if I'm passing my exams, why can't I do sports? And I proved myself. But you have to be very disciplined. And one thing the young lawyers can sacrifice is their social life. I mean, I sacrifice my social life a lot. You can't do everything in the world. You can't go nightclub and then go for training and then go to work and again go nightclub. You can't do that. So maybe the sacrifice what you can do is maybe your social life, social activities. Because one thing what tends, again, if I may just venture out a bit, when you start practicing, suddenly you get some money into your hand. Then you want to spend. But you have to understand that money in time to come might not be sufficient. So you have to go to the next level to earn. Now, this I have seen some young lawyers, they think, oh, this practice is good, I am getting money. See, what there's a day when you have to start your own practice or you have to do something. So suddenly when you get money, that happens. You get carried away. You go to the pub in the evening, have a drink and, like that. So you have to discipline, be disciplined. These are unsolicited comments I made.
No, very true and very relevant. Any last thought you want to leave other than all you said as an advice to the young lawyers and law students?
I would say, tell them to believe in, I would say, believe in yourself. Because don't put limits. You can go beyond the limit. And law profession is a good springboard that helps you in all other professions. I would say the training helps a lot. So believe in yourself and work hard to your objective. And I understand this is a transition and a very uncertain period. So trial and error, you will find your place in life. Like I did and Chanak, you did. So,
Dr. Chanaka Thalpeva, thank you very much for joining us today on Beyond Code Practice episode. It was very enthralling and interesting to talk to you on a completely different sphere and area, which we most of us don't know much. And thank you for those thoughts. And we will like to join with you sometime in other times, in maybe a discussion like this or one-to-one discussion. And then we wish you, therefore, luck and success in everything you do. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to thank the BSL, the committee, the secretary, and everybody who's having this series. It's very good. And for you to be an excellent host, though you put a googly or two, you should have put more googlies. That would have made it interesting. And I hope I have made some contributions for the career progression of our young lawyers. And I like to wish you and all the young lawyers all the very best in their future endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you again, Dr. Chanak Thalpeva. That is Dr. Chanak Thalpeva, our guest today on Beyond Code Practice. He is an expert in, as you see, expert in foreign service and highly qualified and was an ambassador of Sri Lanka to different countries. And we were privileged to have it today. So that's Beyond Code Practice for today. We will join you through very soon with another episode on Beyond Code Practice with another excellent expert in a different field of law and who has done not law but done well in other areas of other success in another area. And we will let you know. Here, stay tuned to our Bar Station news alerts and its text messages and emails, which I'm sure all of you would have been in subscribed to, and you will get to know who is our next guest who's coming up very soon, which is this week. So thank you again for joining us. Have a good weekend and a good evening. I'll see you soon. Good night.